Hi, this is Linda with Crafty Music Maker. In a previous video, I showed you how to make a basic recorder case, which was a great first sewing project. Well, today I'm going to show you how to kick it up a notch. Now, just to make it real easy, you could just use some iron-on vinyl and put your name or anything on here to make it a little nicer. Or you could go even further and find some really fun material at a fabric store, like I did. These have colorful music notes on them. And then you can also add the little cords at the top that closes it together so it won't fall out. So what you'll need is some fun fabric, whatever you like. I have different ones here. If you choose something with a pattern going this direction, then you're going to have to ask for a half a yard. I originally got this and asked for a third of a yard and realized that the flames would not go all the way up. So I ended up going back and getting some more. Now, with the thin cotton fabric, I also added interfacing, and that gave it a little more stiffness to the bag, more like the canvas. So you'll also need some cording. This is what I used. And then you'll also need a safety pin to pull that cording through the top. So let's get started. Here's the fabric I chose. I'm going to cut it to 15.5 inches long and 5.5 inches wide. Now, in my last video, I said I didn't know how to handle a rotor cutter very well. Well, it just needed a new blade. So I got a couple new blades and I'm not having any problem now. Now I'm marking off a 1-inch line because I am going to cut some angled pieces off the edges and the middle, and I don't want to go past that 1-inch mark. So I've marked it there. I'm going to use this straight edge, and hopefully I'll take off the protective cutter because it does not cut very well with that on. Oops, there we go. All right, so I snip this off and miss my fingers. And then I go to the other side and do the same exact thing. And this will help with the cording. That's the whole point of these. That's why we didn't do it in the other one, because there was no cording. So I'll snip that edge off there. And I could cut two separate ones in the middle, or I could just fold it in half. And then by folding in half, though, I've lost my line that I drew. So I'm just going to use the mat as a guide to stay within that 1-inch line. So gonna just do a little bit of angle. You could try just cutting one straight one, and then when you go to hem them, you'll have more fabric to fold over. We'll talk about that later. So here's the final piece. It's got the notch in the middle and the two angled pieces cut off the ends. So now I'm going to add interfacing to it because this fabric's fairly thin. So I put the printed side down of the fabric, and I'm going to use the shiny side of the interfacing on the back side of the fabric. Now they say to use a damp press cloth, so I'm not 100% sure what a press cloth even is. So I just took a cloth napkin that was light in color and I got it damp, and now I'm going to iron it. Now it says to use high setting with steam. It did not say how long. Now this is a little bit sped up in the video, so I'm actually doing it longer than what you see here. And it's interesting, the instructions did not say how long to do that, but it seemed to have taken. You could cut out the interfacing at the same time you cut those other notches. Probably save you some time. So I'm just cutting them off now. And now we're going to hem those side edges. So I'm going to fold those side edges over under a little bit, and then I'm going to sew them down. Unfortunately, my hand is kind of in the way right now, so just got to take my word for it. I'm going to do a back stitch, and then I'm just going to sew that to the bottom of that fold and then do another back stitch and take it out, snip those pesky threads, and I've got 3 more to do just like that. So hopefully you can see a little bit better at this angle. I'm folding it over just to the very edge of that 1-inch mark, and then I'm sticking in the machine. And like I said, if you just maybe leave it alone and just fold more over, you'll have more at the top. It still will be very narrow at the bottom of that, but that's okay. So I'm finished. I'm halfway done now, and now I'm going to fold over those inner ones and do the exact same thing. So put it under the machine. I stick the needle in to hold it in place before I put the presser foot down. And oops, I almost lost the thread out of that needle because I didn't make sure that lever was all the way up on the machine when I lifted it up at the last sewing. And back stitch, forward stitch, and a little back stitch there, and done with number 3. And we only have 1 more left, and that's going to happen right now. Fold it over and stick it under there. I'll put that needle right on into that bigger edge there, go backwards, go forwards, and they're done. So now cut off all those threads again and go back to the ironing board. Now I'm using my ruler. I decided to fold it over about 5/8 of an inch because that gives a more area for the cord to go through. So I like to iron it so it stays down when I'm over at the sewing machine. I measure both edges. That way when I fold this in half, the edges will be the same and won't have one higher or lower than the other one. So now back to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew those down, and I'm going to have the needle close to the cut edge because I want more room towards the top for the cord. So I just go ahead and do each one separately. I suppose you could go all the way through. I just didn't want the extra thread showing, but it may not really matter if your thread matches your material. So again, that needle is going close to the cut edge so you have room to put the cord through. So there we go. Now we just have to sew the bag in half. So I fold it, printed sides together, and I start at the top because I want to make sure the edges end up together, and if I start there, then I know they will be. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam right there, which is really just a little bit past my presser foot. And you could pin this, but I find that this project is pretty easy to keep the edges together. But if you're new at sewing, I suggest you pin it. When you get to the corner, keep the needle down and then turn the fabric, and that way you won't have any missed edges or missed stitches. Go to the very edge and then go ahead and do the back stitch and lift up that needle and the presser foot and just lop off those pesky threads again. And now I'm going to trim that extra material off. I'm going to do the corner and then the edge and then that little corner there, and then all the way up, so I just don't have that extra fabric inside the bag when I turn it inside out. Now the interfacing I used was probably a little heavier duty than I needed. I wanted to replicate the canvas part, so I went for the heaviest fusible interfacing I could get. So it made turning the bag a little bit of a chore, but for some reason I'm able to do it super fast in this video. And then towards the end, I use my scissors to poke out the rest of the material. Fortunately, I've never poked through the fabric, although I guess that's a possibility using scissors. I just want all the fabric to be all the way out so that the seam is nice and flat and straight. And here I'm scraping the tips of the scissors against the seam to again make sure that seam is to the edge. Sometimes it can get lost in the fabric, and so I just kind of popped it out with the tips of my scissors. So I just iron it because it gets a little crunchy or wrinkly when I put that when I turn it inside out. So here we have the cording. This is what I got from the fabric store. So I cut two 12-inch pieces of cords, and I just take my safety pin and I just stick it through the end of the cord, and then I close the safety pin because you can't shove a piece of cord without something hard attached to it. And the safety pin is the easiest thing to do. So I just slide it through that little hem you've just made, and then I pull it out, not all the way though, otherwise you get to do it again. And I'm right-handed, so I just like to do it from the other side. You don't have to turn it over, but you do need to go the same side that you came out on. And then you just poke it through, and there we have through. I take off my pin, and then I tie it into a knot. I just make those ends even and just tie it into one little knot. That's all there is to it, unless the ends don't want to come out like those didn't. I tighten it up, and then I do the same thing on the other side. So I take that other cord, put the pin on, and I go through the opposite way this time. So the side that the strings aren't coming out, I'm going to go through. Now there's a cord in there already, but it doesn't affect me putting the other cord in. Pull it out and then turn it around, go through the other side, and there we have it. So I take off the pin, tie the ends, and now we have a drawstring for the recorder bag, so the recorders will not fall out. So it tightens up very nicely, and recorder goes in, and there we go. A custom recorder bag right there. You can do it too. Now here are the recorders I've made. I made a camel bag. Today I made that flames bag, and I thought it came out really, really nicely. The one with the music notes is also a big favorite, and actually all of them seem to be pretty fun. I also decided last Sunday when I was making them that I was going to use them as an incentive for those students that made it to black belt. If they get their black belt this year, then I will make them a custom recorder bag from the samples that I have. So hopefully that will inspire them to work hard and practice a lot and get that recorder playing done really well. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you want to see upcoming videos, please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time.